you can do anything, but not everything, as said by David Allen. Listeners, welcome to the Mindful Journey. I'm your host, Sana, and today, for this episode, we are talking to a woman who might not ever have time to listen to this episode in one sitting. She has 3 or 4 kids, 2 jobs, no partner to tag in, a calendar, a schedule that looks like a war zone, a nervous system that has been running on fumes for years. She's the one everyone relies on, the one who shows up, the one who gets forgotten in her own life. And if that is you or someone you love or know, this conversation is for you, for her. Not the Pinterest version of self care, not the social media version of self care, not the just wake up at 5 a.m. and meditate version. We are talking about the gritty, unglamorous reality of being overwhelmed and still trying to stay human. And to help unpack this, listeners, we have someone very, very special with us. Kristen Crabtree, she helps people who have spent decades being steady, dependable, and invisible rediscover who they are. She's the author of Be the You, That's More You Than You Have Ever Been, and the creator of Paramore Paradox, which is a self recovery ecosystem born from lived experience, not theory. After 52 years of forgetting who she was, including 22 years in a psychologically abusive marriage, Kristen rebuilt her life by remembering her truth, one layer at a time. Her work bridges science, philosophy, and metaphysics in simple, plain language. And she's known for being candid, vulnerable, and really generous in how deeply she shares. So, Kristen, welcome to the Mindful Journey. And I'm really, really glad that you decided to bring up the discussion around this topic, around, um, you know, around, to get attention towards this aspect, especially for a woman.
Thank you so much for that gracious opening. This topic is so relevant. I think a lot of people who hear about, finding yourself imagine that it has to be done, like at a retreat in the mountains or 2 hours of journaling every night. And, you know, really, most of us reclaimed our identity in the margins, 5 minutes in the car before walking into work while folding laundry, or in the, quiet after everyone falls asleep, if that ever happens, right? So I do not have firsthand experience as somebody working, well, actually, I have worked 2 jobs, but, working jobs with 3 kids, nipping at my heels. So I can't speak to that specific experience. But I do want to just share briefly a little moment of my self-recovery, to give a sense of connection to others who are in places where it's hard to carve out that time. So I was in that 22-year psychologically abusive marriage and completely lost sense of who I was. When I finally crawled out of that marriage, over the next year, I lost everything. My 29-year-old stepson died. My cat, who was my soulmate, died. My dog now has cancer. I lost my job. I've had to go on food stamps. It was my own version of, you know, uh, overwhelming life. So I speak firsthand, but not, directly in the life of the woman that you described. However, that woman is absolutely who I would love to talk to, because she deserves more than anybody to be able to hear that truth and hear who she really is. And in doing so, she will shine a light on her children's lives in a way that is inexplicable. So
Mhm.
I wanted to give these women some tools, some hope, some easy, not easy, well, easy steps that they could take within the constraints of their life. And the first thing is, while yes, it's wonderful to be able to, set aside 2 hours to journal, in
Mhm.
some ways that's almost not ideal because it isn't connected to life. And,
Mhm.
you know, uh, I practice meditation and I highly recommend that to people who are truth seeking. But
Mhm.
meditation doesn't have to mean, sitting cross-legged, on a pillow for
Yeah.
an hour saying, really, meditation is just about quieting the mind, quieting all that chatter. And it's great if you have an hour to do that. Most of us don't.
Mhm.
So, other ways of doing similar things are treating life with awareness. So whether it's chewing your food and really for, one meal, even if it's, from a drive-through, but chewing the food, really feeling the sensation in the mouth and the
Mhm.
flavors. And again, even if it's just 2 minutes of a hamburger from McDonald's, just that
Mhm.
kind of awareness does a shift in our way of looking at life. So you can also explore just little questions like, what do I need right now that won't cost me time I don't have? And
Mhm.
the answer may be something as simple as water or a deep breath or, not having to do one thing that's on the list. I think the other thing is we tend to get caught up in the idea of being someone new or being someone different or making ourselves better, being the best version of ourselves. Those are all like
Mhm.
terms that I hear, but
Mhm.
really, she doesn't need to transform her life. She just needs to reconnect with a part of herself that's already there, but is buried under the work of caring for everyone else. My book um, is structured, excuse me, in such a way that
Mhm.
this woman with incredible demands from everybody on her time, could still find it useful because of this way of breaking down um, awareness into little pieces. So
Mhm.
while the book is pretty, it could be intimidating because it's very large. The
Mhm.
point of it isn't to sit down and do it all in one sitting or even all in one
Yeah.
week or even all in 1 month and maybe not even all in 1 year. There are about 100 questions per section. There's 4 sections. There's about 20 to 40 exercises per section. And
Mhm.
they can be done, like a question could be pondered periodically throughout the day while doing laundry and driving to work and changing diapers. It could be as simple as just meditating on a question and identifying what that really means, to you or to them. And
Mhm.
I think one of the challenges being a woman, period,
Mhm.
being a caretaker, is
Mhm.
that we do want to provide for everyone else, and a lot of times it's, a genuine, desire of just wanting to make other people's lives better. And so he
Mhm.
sacrificed ourselves. And I know I've said a million times to friends of mine, you can't help others or be there for others if you can't, yourself. You don't
Yourselves.
have anything left of yourself. But it's that getting, even that 30 seconds to actually, connect with who you are. The other thing I was thinking about is how carving out intentionally a little piece of time explicitly to your kids could be so impactful in their development. So, and I know, this may or may not be practical all the time, but there might be a moment when it is, when um, she could sit her kids in front of the TV or with coloring books or doing their homework and say, okay, for 5 minutes, mommy's off duty. And she even sits in front of them and does either journaling or a meditation for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
But when I think about when I was a child, if my parents had, because I'm the crazy one in my family for even, asking these questions about who am I. But if I was, 5, 10, 13, and one of my parents did that, it would have really made me look at life and introspection and time and boundaries and all of that really differently. I didn't have that, but just putting myself in the child's shoes, it seems like that would make a really positive impact on their life. And part of what I talk about in my work is the web, the ripple effect, how
Mhm.
one little change in your life, even if it is as small as doing 5 minutes of meditation in your kid with your kids in the room and having them be quiet for 5 minutes, even if it's that, not just ripples out into your life, but ripples out all over the place. It ripples out into the kids. It could ripple out into the community because now you're a little bit calmer than you were before. And so that cashier who just had an angry, nasty person come through the line, and your head is now slightly more relaxed and you smile instead of, clenching your teeth because you're exhausted. It just ripples. And so I guess the message that I want to share is that finding yourself is not really a luxury, it's survival. It's the oxygen mask, and she deserves breath just like everyone else, even if it's only for a few seconds at a time. And like when you think about on an airplane when they say, put your mask on before you put your
Yeah.
kid's mask on, it's the same kind of thing. So those are just some of my thoughts, Sana. What do you think about what I've said? Honestly.
So first of all, Kristen, I mean, same for me as well. It would be a crime if I can say that, I absolutely understand, like I've experienced through many of my acquaintances, like, especially as a I mean, it's unimaginable. And I think some of that kind of transcends as a fear, especially for the younger generations to even think about, starting a family. Because yeah, it may look pretty good on social media that you have kids, you have your pets, you have your family. But I think deep down, I think it definitely requires a lot of attention, a lot of courage, a lot of time. And I think as we are now, moving through towards a very fast paced and a very modern world where you kind of have to be always on your toes to kind of, survive as well. I think what you have said, especially a very realistic vantage point, a very realistic start. You may not have, uh, if you're listening, you may not have 25 or 30 minutes also to listen to this entire conversation. But then at least, Kristen, what you have given is like, a 5 minutes or maybe kind of, quote unquote, managing through those times, like finding gaps in there. Let's say if your kids, they're doing some activity, coloring books, or maybe taking a nap, or maybe, in India, we talk about kids taking home tuitions and all. So, like, finding small snippets or bits of time in there to kind of focus, let's say journaling, or maybe putting some kind of a soothing music, or maybe writing something, kind of which helps you explore yourself. Because I think that will give you those feelings, those thoughts and ideas that, what I'm feeling by exploring myself and trying to understand and acknowledge my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts, that exactly is giving me that fuel to not just survive, not just go through like a zombie, like a robot through the entire day, but at least it is helping me kind of getting back to myself. So I think I really love that you gave a very realistic POV here, a realistic, first step to begin with.
Sana, I actually just had some other things pop in my head listening to you
Mhm,
talk. So,
mhm,
some of the exercises that I have could be fun to engage
mm.
children in, for example, but
Okay.
there's one that I specifically so there's one exercise that I suggest people do. Again, I've got a lot in the book, but one exercise that I use to help people realize that they are more than the persona or the ego or the meat suit that they're in right now. And the
Mhm,
exercise, as I describe it in the book, is while you're doing something routine like dishes,
mhm,
laundry, whatever, for
mhm,
about 3 minutes, or you can do it longer or shorter. You you describe what you're doing in the third person. So Kristen is picking up this plate. She's
mhm,
washing it. She puts some soap on the sponge. She scrubs it with her right hand. She lets the hot water. Oh, Kristen noticed the water is too hot. Kristen turns down the water temperature. Kristen rinses the plate. Kristen puts it in the dishpan. So doing that real really helps you get this feeling that there's somebody else other than you occupying
mhm,
this awareness or this consciousness, that we call us. So some of the exercises are like that, and they can completely be incorporated into routine activities. One that came to mind that I thought actually you could enlist your kids in that could be really fun is called the
mhm.
detective. And
Oh,
for
okay.
the detective, you take a notepad and pen and you go
Mhm,
walking around your house, trying to find the person that's missing. So it's like a missing person, and you're trying to figure out, okay, where would I find this person if they were
mhm,
missing? And take note of, books on the bookshelf and, does this person have any hobbies and are clothes important to them? Maybe they're shopping. So like um looking at yourself from outside yourself, uh and doing that with the kids could be really fun. Let's see who mommy is by playing detective and
mhm,
going around the house and where would mommy be hiding, if she wasn't here. Another my sort of trademark, warm-up exercise,
mhm,
that I don't know if I invented it, I probably didn't, but it's one that I claim to be, my exercise of the book. It's called Who Am I? But there's 4 different,
okay.
ways of doing it. They're actually all designed to be really short, but when I say short, I mean, like, 2 or 3 minutes. The quickie, the 4th version is actually a 30-second version, so definitely
Mhm,
something that somebody could carve out a moment to do. But
mhm,
the the first version of that exercise is you sit face to face with somebody, looking them in the eyes. The person, like, say it was you and me, Sana, and say I was the
mhm.
one trying to figure out who I am. You would ask the question, "Who am I?" As if you were, like, my inner voice. So you're not
Oh,
asking me who you are, you're just saying, "Who am I?" And then I answer about who I am. Well, when you do that exercise, at
Mhm.
some point, like I usually do it timed for 3 minutes. After about 20 seconds, you'll probably run out of things to say. And the person who is your inner voice, so Sauna in this case, you would say, "Who am I?" The only thing you're allowed to say is, "Who am I?" And you're not allowed to nod or smile or anything. You're just there to be the probing voice. Doing that with a teenage daughter or son, or even maybe a younger kid, could be totally intriguing. Obviously,
Oh.
you would have to do it knowing that some things might be uncovered and make
Mhm.
sure that you have the kind of relationship with your child that's comfortable for. But also with a teenage daughter, if you didn't want to have her hear some of the things that might come out, you two
Mhm.
could journal it together, and I'm saying teenage daughter because I can see a teenage daughter doing it more than a teenage son, but maybe that's my own, bias, but gender bias or whatever. But, here's your notebook, honey. Here's my notebook. We're going to write down 30 things about answering the question, who am I? And that's what the second version of the exercise is. Write down 30 things. You're not allowed to do less than 30. You can certainly do more than 30, but even just doing 30 is pretty challenging. So yeah. So anyways, incorporating some of the exercises almost as a game um to do with your kids. I just thought of
It
some
is.
more, like one of them is, walking down a path or driving down a road that you go all the time, but noticing things that you've never noticed before. So again, you could do that with your 5-year-old son. Hey, let's, identify things that we haven't seen before. Uh,
Mm.
but the more awareness is really the first step to uncovering the self. Awareness of everything, not awareness about yourself, but awareness about your existence, about your actions, about your thoughts, feelings, behaviors, experiences, awareness. And I think there are some amazing ways that that could be incorporated into, a relationship with your child, for example. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing which I can think, and especially, as a daughter, I really find it interesting whenever I look at my mom's pictures, maybe from her, childhood, those very old vintage pictures. Oh my goodness. That makes me so much, like this joy within me. Oh my goodness, look at my mom. She's looking so beautiful and charming. So I think sometimes that may also help. I mean, of course, there are, situations to situations, families to families, but then speaking from my personal point of view, I think that really helps me. And you know, i- Kristen, you mentioned about this inner voice thing, and especially as a third person, I really find it intriguing because sometimes, my inner self or my inner me, it kind of tries to question, look at my own physical form and think, okay, who am I in this physical form and all that. Sometimes it's like this, these flashes of seconds within, like, microseconds, or, just this thought will come and then it will vanish. I mean, it's like this, automatic thing. But
Mhm.
that, I really, really find it interesting that, you kind of suggested it. It can be a very, very good exercise.
And Sana, you just made me think of another one that is really, it's something I literally do every day.
Mm.
And
Mm.
people ask me sometimes, like, you know, how do you hear your true self and know what your true self wants? Well, I'll
Mhm.
actually speak out loud to my true self, asking questions, and the very first thing I hear, I speak out loud. That's the response. And so, I'll say something like, true self, what should I be doing right now? And uh, let me just do it as if I was doing it. True self, what should I be doing right now? Well, you should be brainstorming ways to connect with people and help them find their true selves. Well, what if
Mm.
I can't think of ways to do it? Kristen, you can think of ways to do it. You're smart, you're charming, you're, funny, whatever. So when you do that, if the voice that answers is critical, it's not your true self.
Mhm.
It's just not. Your true self is never critical. Your true self is empowering, optimistic, encouraging. True self is your biggest cheerleader. So if you hear something, a response that is anything other than a cheerleader, then you're hearing somebody else's voice. You're hearing your mom or your dad or your teacher or your husband or your kid or you're not hearing your true self.
I think that's a very, very important point, Christine, because often there is this huge confusion between, who is your uh, inner self or your inner voice and your inner critique. And often we kind of, confuse both the voices in there. I mean, and this is something lately that I've also started to identify. My inner critique would say, "Oh, Sana, you are a failure. You haven't done anything big. You're not doing anything good. You're not earning enough money like uh, you know, like your childhood best friend. Like he or she is so happy. Why can't you be happy? Oh my goodness!" And then my inner self says, "You are good. Just try to be better. Do not get bogged down listening to her." I'm trying to, kind of name the person, name their inner critique. A-
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that reminds me, like, I have had so many brilliant conversations with guests, who are actually they're trying to spread this awareness around how you can actually name your inner critique. You can have active conversations with your inner self, your inner critique. And I think that really, really helps us understand that, as you said, Kristen, our inner voice is never judgmental. It always empowers us. It always empowers us. And this is something I also personally 100% believe in.
Yeah.
And one kind of thought comes to my mind, Kristen, like, especially because the exercises that, we are discussing, and especially for, her, I think these really involve kids. Now, I mean, people would say a lot of things here, and obviously there's a lot of, stereotypical belief systems around this, entire concept of single motherhood or balancing so many things together with your kids, with your job, with yourself. And then on top of that, there is all the social stigma and, stereotypes. Um, People would say that, you know, you have taken this life as a choice. And Kristen, I'm speaking from a perspective where people would be judgmental because, yeah, they can be. They are. You have taken this life as a choice. So face it, navigate it, and why are you involving your kids? I mean, they haven't done anything wrong. So just let them be in their own world. Do not try to involve them when you're trying to make peace in yourself. What would you say about this, Kristen?
About involving them or not involving
Yeah.
them?
About this particular thought, by people who would really judge about, especially
Oh.
when, yeah, yeah.
Oh, the judging thing, the judging component.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I judge people who judge. No, I mean, it's like, I'm getting to a place. I'd like to say I've finally come to a place, but I'm getting to a place where I can hear that judgment or witness that judgment and truly realize it's about them.
Mm,
Because, like so Sana, you and I have a conversation right now, right?
yeah.
When we hang up this podcast, how much of the next 10 minutes, an hour, are you going to spend thinking about me? Or how much of it are you going to be thinking about yourself, right? Yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there are times when I'm like, oh, well, I should have said this or I did, maybe they thought, they aren't thinking about me. Like, they aren't. They don't care. They're thinking about themselves. And if somebody is judgmental, it's about themselves, it just is. Um, so yeah, there are my two cents on that for what it's worth.
No, I agree. I agree. I mean, it's kind of their insecurities that they're kind of portraying through, it's a kind of a voyeuristic thing that
Yeah.
people would get some kind of satisfaction in seeing downfall or seeing someone in this, as per them, tragedy per se. But then they would also be jealous. Oh my goodness, you are a single mother still. You're so happy. How come? You are an
Oh,
exception.
oh my gosh, I have to share this. This is
Hmm.
so I work basically as a janitor. I have a job where it's a part-time job, and I work with adults with special needs. My stepson that passed away was an adult with special needs,
Hmm.
and I clean toilets and do all that right alongside them. And
Hmm.
this one gentleman, this just happened today. He always says, "I'm in a happy, good mood," like always. That is he doesn't speak a lot. He doesn't have a lot of language, but one of the things that he always says is, "I'm in a happy, good mood."
Hmm.
And today, I was driving him home, and I said to him, are you always in a happy, good mood?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, first I said, "Wow, I wish I could learn that and you could teach everyone." And I said, "Has it always been that way? Have you always been happy?" And he said, "No." How did he put it? Uh, back in the day, I would get angry. And I said,
Hmm.
"Okay, so, um, how did you go from that to always being happy?" And he said,
Hmm.
"I fixed myself."
Hmm.
That was his answer. "I fixed myself."
Wow.
And I thought, "Oh my gosh, how brilliant." I mean, like, truly,
Yeah.
just to say, "No, I'm gonna fix myself. I'm gonna be happy." Like, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna be happy. And he is always happy, always willing to do any task. He's incredible. I adore him. But I thought that was a really good, valuable lesson that, I got
Yeah,
today, you know? So
yeah.
there.
And it is rare, especially in this world. It is very much rare. Very rare. And I'm really glad that you share that because I think people definitely um no particular persona I'm here describing, but I think every one of us. Oh my goodness, because happiness is such a subjective thing. Like, even the richest person in the world with all the money and everything cannot be happy. And even the person with, just the most minimal materialistic stuff can be the happiest person out there. And for that rich person, it can look as if, he's the poorest, when it comes to happiness.
Yep. Yep. Not funny.
Oh, super, super. Christian, so in order for our listeners, especially, you know, someone, she's listening to us, and maybe someone who knows her is listening to us, if they would like to connect with you, share their thoughts, off of this conversation, and they would also like to get hold of the book, what would be the easiest way?
Use this way. I will, of course, give you the links. The book is available on Amazon. It's also available on my website, but through Amazon. I actually just finished the journal, the
Wow.
accompaniment, and it is, if I do say so myself, it's amazing. I mean, I really think it will help people take things even a step deeper and be a great place to hold all the different thoughts together. So, um, that will be out soon, but it is now actually finished. Um, and there's a lot, Paramour Paradox, my ecosystem, which is my passion project. Um, I built it to support people through their truth seeking because um, I know I get excited about something, and then
Mm-hmm.
the next day I forget it. I forget what I was excited about, and
Exactly, yeah.
so the ecosystem is a bunch of different components. And actually, I just uploaded a free lock screen and some free meditations. Um, So they're all on there. It's paramoreparadox.com. The spelling will be, I'm sure, in your notes. Though I think I've tried to route all the misspellings to the proper place too. But yeah, I hope that it provides, some assistance to people who want it and need it. My email is at the bottom of that website, so people can also reach out to me personally. I have social media, but I'm kind of just starting it. So you're welcome to message me through it, but you'll see there's not a lot there at this point. But yeah.
No worries, no worries. And Kristen, yes, and for all the listeners, I'll have all the exact links and details in the show notes so that you can easily reach out to Kristen, check out her website, check out the resources, check out her book. And Kristen, I must really thank you for, how um honestly and thoughtfully you held this topic today. I really feel that you have been very clear that you are not living this exact reality, but you still showed up with the tools, the language, the compassion that do not pretend to know more than they do. So I really loved the authenticity and the the sincerity here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sona, and thank you for walking this conversation with me. I really appreciate it. You held a great space for it.
Anytime, anytime. And to all the listeners, especially, um, I would love to speak directly to the woman we have been centering. You might be listening this on your commute between jobs, or in the one quiet room in your house, or standing at the sink with us in your earbuds, kids in the background. And even if you hear just part of this episode, I hope that um, you, and this is your system trying to raise its hand. And I hope that you know that you are allowed to be exhausted. You're allowed to be angry, that you have too much to carry. Nothing about that makes you a bad mother or a bad person. Not at all. You might not be able to change everything this week or today, or maybe in this month or the next year. I'm not going to lie and tell you that you can, but you can change one thing about how you treat yourself inside that same life. One honest breath, one kinder sentence in your head, one tiny boundary, even if you whisper it. That is not selfish. That is you refusing to disappear inside your own story. So, thank you so much, listeners, for tuning into this episode of The Mindful Journey. And thank you for spending this time with us. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend, a sister, a mother, a colleague, or that one you know who never sits down. Until then, this is your host, Sana, signing off. Thank you.
Thank you, Sana.